Welcome to the Earn Your Edge podcast. I'm Corey Lombard from ALTUS Performance, and on this episode, we are joined by 8-time PGA Tour winner and former FedEx Cup champ, Billy Horschel. As interviews go, Billy is as easy as it gets. You ask him a question and he's off with very thoughtful and detailed responses on what it actually takes to compete at the highest level. He's as insightful as they get, and I think you're really going to enjoy this one. But before we get into the conversation, a quick word from our partner, Coach Now. Did you know that Coach Now isn't just for coaches? With Coach Now Analyze, athletes get access to a powerful video analysis suite for about the price of a cup of coffee. Coach Now, a product of Golf Genius, is trusted by over 1 million coaches and athletes across more than 60 sports. Their tools give you a clear view of your movement and your progress, whether you're working with a coach or training on your own. For us at ALTUS, Coach Now has become a central part of how we work with players. There's honestly not a day that goes by that we're not in the app multiple times, reviewing swings, sharing feedback, organizing notes, or communicating with players between sessions. It's one of the tools that allows us to stay connected with athletes and keep the coaching process moving forward, even when we're not standing on the range together. Listeners of the Earn Your Edge podcast can get a discount code, a special 7-day trial at coachnow.io/edge. That's coachnow.io/edge. Unlock your potential with Coach Now and see why more than 20,000 users have given it a 5-star review in the App Store. Big thanks to Coach Now for their support. And now here's our conversation with Billy Horschel. Please enjoy.
Just to give you a little bit of background, our audience is very kind of sophisticated golf audience. It's a spread from junior players that are on the path to playing in high school and then beyond into college. It's collegiate players trying to turn professional or looking to turn professional. It's even professional players, and that's all types of people that are supporting those types of players, whether that be parents or physios or fellow coaches that are like us. So we do these things to scratch our own itch, and we try and ask the questions as if we're coaches one, players another, and then cover the career arc. And so to that end, in terms of covering the career arc, we want to go back to your upbringing inside of not only your family life in a fairly rural part of Florida, your sport history, and then let's pick up as it pertains to golf. Like most of our listeners, as I mentioned, junior golfers, and there's a lot of pressure to be elite early. And like a lot of paths do start with some level of coaching and a country club membership, but yours didn't start that way. So I'd like for you to share with the listeners your upbringing inside of golf. I think it was an executive course and a Mooney in there, and I'll just let you kind of wax on with what it looked like with Billy Horschel growing up in the world of golf.
Yeah, I grew up in a town called Grant, Florida. It's on the East Coast, Central Florida, on the East Coast of Central Florida. It's about 45 minutes south of Kennedy Space Center, NASA, where that is. Grew up on 2.5 acres, really in the middle of nowhere, as I say. But my family has been in that area for roughly 100 years now. My grandfather grew up down in Fellsmere and then moved up to the Melbourne area when Kennedy Space Center was getting built, and that entire area was sort of booming a little bit. I very lower middle class, I would say. Neither of my parents had a college degree. My dad was a construction worker. His dad did the same thing. So my dad did for 50 plus years now. Mom, went to school to be like a hairstylist / beautician, and then, decided to do something else. And I don't know what I can't remember the exact title, but all I can say is that there was multiple times, several times that one of my parents was out of a job for months at a time. So we didn't have financial means. Parents had a couple mortgages on the house. The thing I had is that two loving parents that did everything they could to provide every opportunity for my brother, younger brother, Brian, and then my older brother, who's 13 years older than me, the best financial, best opportunities to be successful in life. And so my dad was my coaches for a lot of my sports. I played golf, tennis, baseball, football, played multiple sports growing up. Baseball and golf were the two sports I played the most and played the longest. I played baseball till about 14 before I entered high school. But we didn't have a lot of money to, growing up playing junior tournaments, play some junior tournaments around Brevard County. Had like a little junior tour during the summer. And then there was a junior players tour that was created. when I was younger down in the Southeast Florida, and then the Florida Junior Tour, which is run by the Florida State Golf Association, came along. So a lot of events we traveled just by car and then drove home. So 2-3 hours drive back home. That's the way it was a lot of times. Just trying to make costs, as effective as possible. But sports wise, I played everything growing up. I loved baseball. I was trying to make a decision before I went into high school. Did I want to play both? Did I just want to focus on one? A couple months before I went into high school, I broke my elbow playing baseball. I threw a baseball and fractured my growth plate. Sort of saw that as a sign that maybe baseball wasn't it. Decided to focus on golf. I was a really good high school player. I made it to states 3 times as an individual. I think I finished top 10 twice and top 20 as a sophomore. Wasn't a world beater by any means as a junior player. I would say in the state of Florida, I was probably ranked somewhere between 7th to 10th best player in the state of Florida, which was good, but the other guys were better. They played AJGA events. I played probably 5 to 7 AJGA events as a junior, and a lot of them were played between my senior year of high school and freshman year of college. I played a junior event down at Marisol in West Palm. I finished 2nd, which got me into like the junior Rolex events and a couple of the prestigious individual invitational events for AJJ that summer. But yeah, I mean, I'm come from very modest means. Like I said, construction work. I was many of times where I went to go work for my dad at construction sites. Wake up at 4 or 5 a.m. in the morning. We're at the job site before sun comes up, and we're there till sun goes down. So, a work ethic was instilled in me from my parents, and we saw it that you have to work hard to get whatever you want. And I think one reason my dad wanted my brothers and I to go work construction sites is he wanted us to see that as a, stucco and drywall and stuff. He did really hard labor. Like, this isn't fun. This isn't enjoyable. It's hard work. It's not a lot of money. And if you're going to be in the construction industry, be the guy who's running the job site, be the architect, be the guy who owns the construction
the GC,
company.
right?
Yeah. And so, I had no desire to do anything construction. I think in my mind, seeing my dad do a whole bunch of stuff from yard work to house, fixing houses and all this stuff, I think I had that ability, but my wife makes fun of me because I don't have that ability. I mean, I can do some basic stuff, and I think I can do more than I think I can do more than I'm really able to do. But and like I said, I've had 2 great parents that loved me to death, loved my brothers and I to death, and gave us every opportunity to be successful in life. And that was their goal. They wanted to give us every opportunity that they could, and went above and beyond their means to try and give us that. And we were very fortunate. I got a scholarship to the University of Florida. I only had 2 scholarship offers. One was to a junior college in Brevard County, which at the time, and I still believe it's one of the top junior colleges in the country, Brevard Community College. I think it used to be coached by Jamie Howell, and Jamie Howell, I think, is still there. And then University of Florida, Buddy Alexander gave me a call like October of my senior year, said, "Hey, listen, I've got a book scholarship, 10% scholarship. It's a book scholarship, $400 a semester. It's between you and another kid in Jacksonville. I'm not even sure if I'm going to offer to one of you guys, but so I just want to call you." But he had seen me play a little bit. I had qualified for the junior AM at Olympic earlier that summer. I proceeded to shoot, I think, 85, and beat 2 other guys in a field of 144. So I did a really good job of impressing the college coaches at that time. Because that was a big step. Like, if I could play well there, that was going to give me some other offers. And obviously I didn't play well. I got lucky. Buddy loved what he saw. Actually watched me 9-hole practice round. He had seen me play a little bit, but he watched me in a 9-hole practice round and he left. I finished, I think, 6th my senior year at States, that weekend. And he called me after and said, "Hey, I love the way you went about your practice round. I think, you sort of," I didn't say this specifically, but like a little diamond in the rough. I think there's something there. I like the way, your tenacity. I like the way you did some things. I'd love to offer you the scholarship. And I was over the moon. I was excited, go off the phone, told my parents. And my parents were like, that's great, but hey, we got to look at this as a financial sense. Because listen, we don't have money to, send you. We got to see what the numbers are. And thankfully I was good enough in school that I got 75% of my tuition paid for. Obviously I had to pay for room and board. You got to pay for now food and everything. So there was some, things we had to cover, but, he took a chance on me. I accepted the offer. I've always been a Gator my entire life. The dream school I wanted to go to, the dream coach I wanted to play for, because I knew who Buddy was.
Right.
And it worked out, and I was able to play well in college. And then after my first year, my scholarship went up to this amount. In the last 2 years, I was on a full scholarship. So yeah, you sort of take a gamble on yourself, and it paid off. But like I said, the gist of this entire thing is that you don't have to, you said it earlier, all these kids want to peak out of 12, 13. They want to be the best 12-year-old, the best 13-year-old. And people develop later in life. Like I can tell you, there's a kid by the name of Greg Forrest who went to UCF who was a better player than me. And no one knows who Greg Forrest is. And he's a great guy, and he's unbelievable. He's doing some real estate now in South Florida, and he's killing it. But all these guys that were better than me in the state of Florida and some other areas around, the Southeast, like, you don't know who they are. You never heard their names, but they were the best junior players at the time. The only one that I can say made it, who was in my similar age, was Brian Harmon. Brian Harmon was the #1 junior player in the world, went to Georgia, did great. Got out on tour, struggled the first couple of years as pro, got out on tour. Obviously, everyone knows who he is now, the Open champion. But, as you said, like, it's not about peaking. It's about developing. I think so many things now in sports, not just in golf, but in other sports I see, especially with my kids, it's about, hey, you got to win. You got to be the best in this and that. It's like, no, it's about developing your skills and improving. Yeah, I'll leave it there. You guys ask what you guys.
Corey, do you have a follow-up or?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, and that's a story that we want to amplify because, like Cam said, like you said, there's so much pressure to be elite early. And so many times that pressure isn't coming from the kid, it's coming from the parent.
Correct.
And so I heard in an interview you say about your dad that if you were going to be serious about golf, if you wanted to be really good at it, that he was going to push you. But if at any point you said, hey man, I just want to do this for fun, that he would support that too. And as a parent of a kid and a coach, obviously, like that sounds like a masterclass and walking that very thin line of applying enough pressure on a kid to have that discipline and that work ethic without being a detriment to their development, like what we see all too often. So I'm just curious. I love that quote. What did that actually look like in real time? Like, what did him pushing you? What was that experience like when, you were a kid and being pushed the right amount, it sounds like?
Yeah, I think it came about probably the age of around 11 or 12. I may have been 12. My brother was around 11. I just remember my dad saying, we played some little league rec ball, and baseball now is completely different than when I grew up. Like, you played rec, and then if you played AAU ball, travel ball, like it was traveling to like maybe Orlando, which is a 45-minute drive, or down to South Florida, or maybe up to Daytona Beach, like a couple hours. You're not traveling 5-6 states away now. Right. But what that looked like was, he said, hey, listen, if you guys want to be great, if you guys want to see how good you can be and get better in baseball, or you want to get better in golf, like, I'll push you. Like, my dad, went to coaching clinics, and then he would go watch, spring training ball was, we had the Miami Marlins, the Florida Marlins, now the Miami Marlins there up in Vieira, Florida, then the Montreal Expos, which became the Washington Nationals. So he'd go watch what those coaches do. He'd read books, watch, videos and stuff of coaching instructions. And so what that looked like is like, hey, summertime, hey guys, we're going to go train, you're going to go do some sprints, every other telephone pole you have to sprint to, and you could walk or jog, and you would do push-ups and do core. And I think one reason why, the hip issue is, it's out of my hands. But one reason I think I've been fortunate enough not to have a lot of other injuries is my dad was very fitness oriented, and we worked really hard on our core and really hard on having strong legs, so that protected my back. Now, at the time I didn't really think anything of it, but obviously that's a big reason, I've had a really good back for the game of golf for a long time. and we would go hit extra baseballs. We would go to practice early. He was our coach, and we get the practice hour, 2 hour early. We'd be taking ground balls, fly balls, all these things that, he said, hey, you guys want to go practice early? Yes, we want to go practice early, and, if we would say no, he may say something like, well, you guys tired, or you guys what? We just don't want to go do it. Okay, well, why? Do you not? He would just sort of question us a little bit, and sort of use some of our own words back on us. But, there was always that. He always understood the fine line, like not pushing us too much, but the player, the kid themselves have to have that own passion, that own desire to be great. And the, if the parent has more passion, like you said, the parent has more passion and more love for the sport than the kid's at some point in time is going to revolt. Maybe not when he's under the household, but if he goes somewhere else and he's out on his own, he's not going to want to do it because he's always been, had his parents push him, and he's not going to push himself, or she's not going to push himself. So, like I've always had a passion to be great. Like as a young kid, like all I cared about, all my dream was be a professional athlete. Didn't know what sport it was going to be in, but that was my dream. Like I just love sports, and that's what I wanted to do. And so whatever sport it was, I gave everything I could. Like I always, we always did extra pitching practice in our backyard. My dad built a pitching mound out of wood, sort of that way, so my brother would pitch to me, I would pitch to him. He would catch, each other switch and catch, and we do extra tee drills off the back of the yard. And I had, like I said, my backyard was 100 yards, so I'd go out there, hit wedges, whenever I wanted. And my dad built sort of a tarp out there that I could hit golf balls into if I couldn't make it to the driving range, if they couldn't take me. During the summers, when golf, even at a young age, at 13, 14, they would drop me off at 7 a.m. in the morning, and I was there till 7 o'clock at night, chipping, hitting balls, going to play. Like Brevard County had a great deal where you could play. You paid for a yearly membership at the local city courses, and you could play for $5 a round, which was great. And so one of my first pros that helped me was Alex Romanoff over at the Habitat of Valkyria. Like he was awesome. And so like I had that passion, and the kids have to develop that passion. The parents can push them, and I think the goal, like even as me as having my kids now, like I push them to show them how good they are, like how they, how good they are. Like, hey, you're really good. Like, to hopefully develop their love for the game. And like my daughter, one of my daughters is a cheerleader, and she loves it, and she has a natural passion for it, and she wants to get better. And every day she's at the cheer gym and realizing, practicing and working with her coaches. And, we have to actually pull her back sometimes to understand you got to have rest and recovery. You had another daughter who was in cheer, and she loved it, but it just wasn't her thing. Like she didn't really, like she would go to do privates and work with the coaches, but it just wasn't her passion for it. But now she likes flag football, and she loves that. She loves going to get better and practice, and that's her thing. I've got a son now who just loves every sport. He wants to go play golf all the time. And he started out playing soccer, and I love soccer. And, he did it for a couple years, and like, he loved it, but it wasn't his thing. He's like, I don't want to do any soccer anymore. And like, I'm like, shoot, but like, I'm like, okay, that's fine. And so we started him in flag football and baseball. And he loves his t-ball that he's done. And he has a natural passion for golf, and he has a natural passion for sports. He's watched every sport. He knows all the stats of every team and players and everything. It's crazy to see, but the kids have to develop that passion.
Sure. Yeah.
You can push it, you can harness it, you can sort of, build on it, but you've got to, the kids themselves have to build that passion. Okay. And everybody's different. Every parent's different. Every kid's different in how to build that. But I think you showing them love, you showing support for them, when they ask to go hit golf balls, or, hey, I want to do this a little bit better. Well, find a coach if you have the means to do that. If you don't have the means, then maybe yourself, you can learn about, improvements. There's so much stuff through YouTube and the internet now that you can sort of you can learn yourself, but you can also have them watch and learn and develop that talent. But the kids themselves have to have that passion and love if they're going to continue to play and maybe be great at it if that's what the ultimate goal is.
Yeah, that's such great advice. And I would add just a little bit to that, things that you demonstrate as a person, and clearly then would demonstrate in your role as parent to your children. And that's the energy and that's the enthusiasm. And it comes across through your encouragement. And I've seen it a few steps removed when I've been around you with your children, but it echoes who you are and then your upbringing with your mom and dad, which you've just touched on at great lengths. I really appreciate that. If we can move into the college years, I would imagine that knowing the University of Florida and the perennial powerhouse that they are, you came onto the team, and given that you're on a book scholarship, Buddy Alexander saw some promise there, some sort of something, a diamond in the rough, as you had mentioned. But yet, at that point, he's pushing chips behind you, but the responsibility is yours to surface some amount of change, right? And it wasn't just some amount of change, it was a transformation essentially that realized what he saw in you. And so maybe there's something to be said for a coach that had confidence in you to take a chance, but there's also the same hard work that you spoke at length about that needed to be doubled down on, maybe as you're carrying a workload of school and also travel, to the extent that you were a full-time All-American and SEC Player of the Year, one of the best players in college golf. So take us through that journey of how you developed and what were the largest changes that you made from a skill standpoint and a mindset standpoint in those college years that gave you great promise of, yep, I can turn pro and I can be successful?
Yeah, I think, when I went to the University of Florida, Buddy was very honest. And if you know Buddy Alexander, he's very straightforward and he tells it how it is. And he pretty much said, hey, listen, in the fall, everyone has a chance to qualify for events. And then when spring comes around, I sort of start, whittling the team down, figuring out who my top 7, 8 guys are. And those are the guys who are going to more likely have the chance to qualify for the tournaments in the spring, especially as we get closer to the SEC Championship, regionals, and nationals. So I went in that first semester at University of Florida, and my mindset was, I'm at one of the best colleges for golf in the country. There's 12 guys on the team. And I figured sorry, my kids are crawling around and doing some funny stuff.
I saw Darth Vader somewhere in the background.
You got Iron Man and Darth Vader somewhere. So
good.
Yeah, there we go. That's
Okay. But I go in my first semester and there's 12 guys on a team, and I'm like, listen, if I can qualify, if I can beat these guys in qualifying, then that means I'm one of the best players in the country. Because here I got Matt Every, he was an All-American. James Vargas is an All-American. Brett Stegmeyer is an All-American. Jesse Mudd was, I think, an All-American, was a stud coming out of high school. He was 2 years older than me. You had really great players. You had Ryan Cochran, who was a great player at University of Florida, especially in his early years. So I'm going against guys that were All-Americans and SEC, recognitions and first and second teams. And so I'm like, okay, if I can beat these guys in qualifying, that means I'm pretty good myself. Like, it just gave me that extra confidence. And then the big thing was I was a really good ball striker. My putting was pretty good. Short putting was pretty good. I'm a lot better putter now than I was in college, but I believe I had confidence in my putting and my ball striking ability. Short game was a little hit or miss. But Buddy, what he did is he taught me how to play the game of golf, how to manage getting around on a golf course, where to be aggressive, club selection, how this all worked, and sense of piecing it all together. And I remember, and like I said, there was many different things. I think when you look through life, like, well, what happened if this didn't happen? Where would I be?
Right.
If I didn't go to University of Florida, would I be on the PGA Tour and have won, this and that? I don't know. I mean, it's really hard for me to say that would have worked out the way if Buddy Alexander doesn't give me that opportunity. If I don't qualify for the first event at the UF, I remember I qualified and we would go to Inverness Country Club up in Toledo, Ohio. First college event. and I finished top 10. I doubled the last one. I think I finished 10th or 9th or 10th, and I felt awful because I thought I lost us team, team tournament. I remember Buddy coming behind the green, as Matt Every was finishing up. I was playing in front of him, and he goes, because I scored a long bunker shot over the green, and he's like, I think we may need to work on some, chunk and run bunker shots. But where do I go if I don't qualify for that first event? Where do I go if I don't finish top 10? Which automatically got me in the next event where I finished top 10, which automatically got me in the next event where I finished maybe top 10 or 12th. And I had an unbelievable fall, but it was because Buddy taught me how to play a game of golf. He taught me, how to hit shots, short game shots. He just taught me as a coach and as a U.S. amateur champion himself, and playing a Walker Cup team, and his, 30, 40 plus years of knowledge of the game of golf. And if people don't know, Buddy's dad played professionally and was on several Ryder Cup teams, Skip Alexander. So he comes from a very deep background of golf. And so his knowledge, I was like a sponge. I soaked it all in. I mean, everything he said, I did. I mean, like I said, I was already out there early practicing. I showed up as early as I could whenever I got out of class, right there, spent Saturdays, Sundays, 7 a.m. like I would if my parents dropped me off at the golf course, spend all day there, practice, play, whatever, play money games against Matt Every. And there was another guy who helped me tremendously. Matt Every kicked my butt a lot during my first semester at University of Florida. I'm not afraid to say he gave me shots when we played, and he still kicked my butt. I may have thought I was better than him, and I wasn't, but he gave me shots and he still kicked my butt. But going up against Matt Every, we were very much the same. He went to the University of Florida pretty much as a walk-on. He worked his way up to being a first-team All-American, a stud guy, won the Ben Hogan Award. And so me and him have a great relationship, but practicing and playing against him was amazing to see. And just, I think, how much confidence he played with and tenacity, sort of just, I fed off that. And just little words of advice he gave and the confidence, what he said about, how good I was, like that helped tremendously. Yeah. And so all this stuff sort of within the first 6 months of my college career set me up for the rest of not only my college, next, 3.5 years of college, but set me up for professional golf as well.
Brilliant. Let's transition there into professional golf, because one of the fun parts about doing these interviews, Billy, is we do research on a whole career, and you think that a player like you who we've watched play for so long. I go back to like the first part of your career, and it wasn't quite as smooth as what I envisioned it being. And now hearing the support that you had at Florida, maybe that's part of it. You kind of leave where you've got this guidance and you have this culture and you're on your own. It's okay to say now you missed 18 of the first 22 cuts, because we know how this story ends. It's okay to bring that part up. Can you talk to us about for young players, especially who are encountering that kind of learning curve when they're like climbing the ladder to the next rung of competition, what in particular you found the most difficult or the most challenging during that period as you're making like this jump to the next level?
Yeah, I think a lot of stuff for me, and it still is to this day, has always been mental. It's never been about the skill level. It's never been about the game. Do I have the shots or the work ethic or anything like that? It's more or less, my mentality as a junior golfer. I knew I was good and I felt I was good, but when I watched other guys that were having the results, I'm like, man, I may not be as good as that guy. It was more of a mental thing. Even though I had confidence and I was cocky and arrogant around the people that, at home and playing with other juniors and this, that, when I went to a bigger stage, I wasn't sure if I was good enough. And maybe that falls to like maybe my, growing up background, growing up, lower middle class, blue collared all the way. Like, you just never saw yourself. You saw everyone else had all the nice stuff and the kids have the nice clothes and new shoes and everything. And it's like, you just maybe that's, I always felt like I just wasn't good enough at times. But, when I turned pro, I got my card right away out of Q school. Unfortunately, I had a wrist injury. So I had to have surgery in March, come back, go through Q school again. Didn't need to. I had status, but my status was limited to X amount of starts. And I'm like, well, if I go back, I get an entire year of, as many starts as I want through the Q school category, depending on how I play. I get my card again. I finished that was 2011. So I finished. I went through it 4 times. So 2009, 2010. Go back at the end of 2011. And I knew I wasn't playing good. And I knew I just went to Q school. I'm like, man, I'm just not feeling good about my game right now. Don't get through Q school. I finished top 150. So I had X amount of starts. I was in the 125 to 150 category, bounced back and forth between the PGA Tour and Korn Ferry Tour, Nationwide maybe at the time. Go back to 2012 Q school. I knew I was going to get my card, play well, go out the PGA Tour in 2013. But I think that those first, year to 18 months, it's tough to say because that 2009, 2010 season, after I got my tour card, I had a wrist injury and everything, but I just sort of psyched myself out a little bit. And I still do it to this day, not nearly as much as I did back then, but I'm watching these guys I watched on TV and they couldn't be nicer, but man, I see these guys hit quality shots. I'm like, gosh, I just, you think you got to do more than what you need to. And that's always been my issue, is that I always thought I had to do more in the golf course. Like I worked hard, I put so much work ethic into it, but I thought I had hit every 7-iron to 15 to 20 feet. I had to, make every putt. Like I just felt like I had to do more, and I didn't manage my game early in my career as a professional golfer like I did in college. Like I knew I was a great college player because I've had the results. And so I'm like, hey, I know I'm going to go there. I know I'm going to find some way to play well. And I know I'm going to have have a great finish. Like I may not win, but I know I'm going to finish top 10. I went to PGA Tour and I felt like I had to do more than what I did in college. And so my message to a lot of the guys that come out of college and get on the tour now or playing professional golf, whether it's Korn Ferry Tour or PGA Tour, is like, hey, and I heard this too, and it takes a while to soak in, but you're good enough. You've got here. You don't have to change much. You just have to learn and to make little baby steps and improve little areas of the game of golf. You don't have to make these dramatic leaps and bounds that you think you have to do. You're good enough to be out here in the PGA Tour. You have to figure out how to manage your game out here, manage your time, and understand it will all sort of materialize at some point in time. But if you're sort of thinking you've got to start, I've got to drive it further now, or I'm seeing, Colin Morikawa hit every iron shot close. Like that's what you got to do. No, manage your game. I think Scotty Scheffler is the perfect guy. Even though he hits it, he never misses a golf shot. How he manages his way around the golf course is the biggest thing. And that's the big thing that I didn't do really good around the golf course early in my career. I didn't manage myself very well in tournament rounds. I didn't, try and play with what I had. I was trying to play perfect golf swing, which is I'm a perfectionist at heart, and that's a fault of mine. But it's learning how just to manage your way around PGA Tour courses now. The way you would have done in college is just, of course, a little bit tougher.
Was there an event or a person that you added to your team? I don't know when Todd came on board and when Brett McCabe came on board that helped you take the knowledge of, hey, just do you. And over time, if you keep just doing you, then things will pan out. If you just bet on the current skill level and talent you have, things will pan out and you will get the results that allow you to keep your card. You'll put consecutive cuts together and ultimately end up winning in 2013 at Zurich. Was there something that happened before that then, I guess, coalesced to you actually living the statement that you made of Billy, just do Billy?
Yeah. Started working with TA the sort of end of my first semester of my senior year at college, so end of 2008. TA was great. There's another thing. Where would I be? Like, Buddy was a big help. TA was the next step of that. Teach me how to be a professional golfer. I think I think 2012 was a big year for me because I didn't have full status. I was jumping back and forth between tours a little bit. I remember I had a chance to win. I was playing well. I can't remember if it was end of 2011 or 2012. Yeah. And I had a chance to win and it just didn't work out. But I I think going into 2013, my mind finally realized like I just need to play my game. Like after the first 3 years of being a professional golfer and having some good results and then not having some great results and sort of being up and down. 2013, I think I just carried, the success that I had in Q school. I made a statement. I remember after getting my card for the third time through Q school. They said, "What's your goals for 2013?" I said, "I'm going to win." They're like, "Okay, yeah." I'm like, "No, I'm going to win. I'm going to win on the PGA Tour next year. I'm winning for sure." And obviously, that's the cocky side of me. I had my hat backwards, and I'm sure people were like, everyone says that, but I knew deep down that I finally found that belief that I was good enough to be out on the PGA Tour. Even though I had my card for a couple of years and everything else, I think it's just you gotta truly believe it. You can say it, but you gotta believe it in every aspect of your body that you're good enough to be on the PGA Tour, that you're good enough to win. If you play your game, you do what you do, you're gonna find that way. And I think a big stepping stone was that 2013 start of year. I played really well at Farmers the first 2 rounds. I was a shot back from Tiger going into the last 2 rounds. We had a fog delay on Saturday, so I got to play with Tiger for 36 holes on Sunday, and we had to go back into Monday. I didn't play very good. I think I finished 30th. I think I shot like 70, 76, 74 or something like that. But what I witnessed with Tiger is Saturday, Tiger played unbelievable. I mean, the third round, he played unbelievable. Didn't miss a shot. I think he shot 66 maybe, and it was beautiful. We have a 30-minute delay or 30-minute little break. He goes out on the first hole, snipe hooks it into number 6 fairway, and proceeds to struggle these next how many holes we've got in? Probably like 8 or 9 holes, and he struggled on coming back out the next day. But what I witnessed, and which was a big learning curve for me, which you learn, which but I think you may have to see it in person, is he missed it always in the right spots where it allowed, especially on a course like that, it allowed him to continue to make a score where I was shooting at every pin and I was just making mistakes. And I remember I talked to him afterwards and he said, "Hey, Billy, you're good enough, man. You need to learn how to manage your games. You need to learn, when to be aggressive, not when to be, when to sort of be conservative." And that was a big help. Joe LaCava, said some nice words to me after those 36 holes. And I think that led to me, just learning a little bit more.
Yeah.
I proceeded to, play some good golf, and I got on a run of finishing top 10 a couple times. I had a chance to win at Hilton Head. I had a chance to win at Houston the week before the Masters. I finished second.
And the Texas Open third.
Yeah, the Texas Open. Yeah, and I was just, the confidence was building. And I remember Todd and I talking about it after Hilton Head before the Zurich Classic. That Sunday round I played really good, but I just made a couple mistakes again. And he's like, "Hey, if you can clean these mistakes up, you're going to have a chance to win." And then, go to next week to Zurich Classic and, play really well 4 days. I shoot 60, 64, shoot 10 under on I shoot 12 under on the weekend, I think, to win. And so it was just that progression of believing I'm good enough. And then it was, okay, now that I'm good enough, what is holding me back? Like from, what's the next step to get into the winner's circle? And for me, it was managing, the golf even better out on the PGA Tour, because it's, as you guys know, college golf and PGA Tour golf is completely different. You can be aggressive as much as you want in college, and your misses don't get punished as much. On the PGA Tour, a lot of the courses, if you miss in a bad spot and you can't get up and down, you can't save par. And so those things are just saving shots around the golf course and learning how to play. You learn junior golf, and then you progress to the next level, learning how to play collegiate golf, and you go from collegiate golf to PGA Tour golf. It's always those learning curves and what needs to change and how to manage your game around the difficulties of these golf courses that you progress to.
The periods of time where you've been trending in play, and well, actually, let me go a different direction with this question. You've won multiple times, and the question, I guess, at its root is, how predictive is the weeks prior as it relates to like a feeling that you're ready to break through and win again, whether that win is consecutive weeks BMW Tour Championship or what happened prior to BMW, or what you were just describing, which was in 2013 before your first win, you went second, third, ninth, and then won. Is it safe to say, or is it a false statement to say that most of the time when a player is getting close to breaking through, um, there's this incremental growth in performance and improvements in performance that allow you to just trim the fat week to week, like Todd was talking on the week at Hilton Head? Or do some wins just come out of nowhere?
Yeah, that's a great question. I've had I've had runs where I played really well and I knock
Mhm.
off a win, and I've had periods where I'm like, gosh, I'm not playing good. Next, a win comes. 2014 was weird. I felt like the game was really good the entire year of 2014. I just wasn't putting good. The putting was off. That was holding me back, and I would have some good finishes, but they just weren't great. And I just missed the cut at the Barclays Championship at Ridgewood.
Mhm.
I was started at 69th in the FedEx Cup. I missed it by a shot. Go home. My wife's right about to have our first kid in a couple of weeks, and I remember, I was like, man, I'm just ready to. I felt like this year it was a good year. Felt like I played well. I just haven't got everything out of it. I'm just ready to sort of restart the year. You
Mhm.
know, start with a new, fresh. Everyone starts at zero in the FedEx Cup points, and she's like, hey, just go have fun. You got nothing to lose.
You're going to
You're
Boston,
gonna
Deutsche
be,
Bank.
yeah, you're going to Deutsche Bank, and so I head up there, and I remember talking to the Ping rep, Matt Rollins, who's a great friend of mine. I was with Ping at the time, and he goes, and he was asking me how I'm doing. I'm like, yeah, I'm just ready for the new FedEx Cup season to start. Like, I just feel like I just need a fresh start. And he said, yeah, I get that, but Hunter Mahan was having an awful year. He wasn't having an awful year. He was having not a year like he was normally used to. And now it could be one of his best years because he just won the Barclays Championship,
Right.
last week. And now everything can flip in a switch. And I was like, yeah, yeah. And so Todd and I are working, and we are going out. Barclays started, or Deutsche Bank started on a Friday. I remember going out practicing with him on Wednesday, and like I said, the putter just didn't feel great. Just the consistency of the roll, the way the strike just wasn't there. And I remember him, we're on the first tee, hitting some putts on the green there, and he said, "Hey, just strengthen your left hand a little bit. Let's see if that can allow the putter to load a little bit more, so you can get a little bit more energy in there into the strike." And I hit a couple putts, like, oh, this is really good. I play in the perm the next day. I'm like, God, this feels great. This feels good. I go out first round. I'm playing pretty good. I think I'm like one or two on the par, and I make two good putts on 17, 18. I make a left to righter from about 13 feet on number 17, and I make like a right to lefter from about 8 feet on 18. And I remember calling TA after the round. I said, "Hey, we're good. We're off to the races.
I got chills,
It's
baby.
we are
So
good.
good.
We're gonna finish this off this week, or we're gonna have a really good finish." Because I was so confident in my ball striking, so much control, and then I think the next day I went out and shot, I don't know, 64, 65, played well on Saturday, was in the last group on Sunday with Russell Henley. Um, Chris Kirk was a group in front of me. I remember making a big putt at number 15 for birdie, to get tied for the lead. Then Kirk made birdie at 16, I think, to take a one-shot lead, um, or tie me. I can't remember what it was along those lines, but I missed birdies at 16 and 17 and then 18. I knew I needed to make birdie to tie him, eagle to win. Unfortunately, I ball down below my feet. I tried to make sure I stayed down on it so I wouldn't lose it right. And I just stayed down a little bit too much, chunked it in the hazard. I think I made bogey maybe. Finished tied for second. And everyone would have thought I was disappointed,
Mhm.
upset, and didn't want to, but I saw it as a flip side. I was like, man, this is what I've been waiting for this entire year, for this to finally show up. And I was like, I told TA, I said, hey, listen, we're going to go next week to Denver. We're going to have a chance to win. Like, I feel really good about my game, and went there, played well, go to FedEx Cup Tour Championship, play well there. I'm going against Rory McIlroy the final two rounds. We played together. No one player in the world I think he won two majors that year. He won PGA and the British Open at
Mhm.
Hoylake.
Yep.
So I'm going against the best player in the world at the time. And I wasn't afraid. I mean, I played Rory against Walker Cup. I know who he is. I know his talent. I know he's a more talented player than I am. And I know if he's playing great, it's going to be really tough for me to beat him over 36 holes. But I felt like, hey, I'm playing good. If he slips up, I'm going to take advantage. And you know, we both played really good on Saturday. Sunday, you know, both get off to good starts. But he, you know, snipe hooked a tee shot in the water on number 6, makes double, opens the door. I, you know, take advantage of it and was able to finish that tournament off. So to your question, does, you know, prior weeks or prior prep work, is that a sort of a sign
Predictive.
of what could, predictive? I think it is at sometimes. I found that sometimes when the prep's been really good and I've played and I feel really good about my game, I've actually played worse because I think the expectation of that, of how good I feel about my game sort of gets in the way. I expect to hit every shot great. I expect to hit every chip shot, you know, to tap, and I expect to make every 25-footer. And I found there's sort of a happy medium. Like, you want to feel like you're really good with the game, but you also have that little bit of caution that it makes you focus a little bit more. And I think sometimes when I've been, you know, the game feels really good, I don't really focus as much, or I can get a little bit lackadaisical with things, or vice versa. I can be too aggressive and be too overconfident with it. So yeah, it's a weird thing. And, you know, I'll proceed to 2017. I'm not playing, you know, game just isn't good. I think I missed like 4 or 5 cuts, four cuts out of 5, just missed the Players Championship. I'm not in the US Open. I'm not in the PGA. I was in the PGA, but I was in the British Open. And we go to Byron Nelson, and I'm on the range. And I remember Tuesday after the practice, I'm talking to my caddy, Josh Castle at the time, and my stats guy, Mark Horton, who came on my team at the beginning of 2014. He's played a massive part in my success on the PGA Tour because he's given me the stats and the statistics of, you know, how holes have played way before anyone else started doing it, of, you know, where to miss it on certain around the greens, you know, when to be aggressive off tees, where birdies and bogeys are coming from, all this other statistical stuff, sort of just to back up, you know, that confidence of, hey, let's be aggressive here, or no, let's be a little bit more conservative with this. Got Hulk over here now. But go to 2017, Byron Nelson. I'm not hitting it great. The swing doesn't feel good. I mean, Todd and I are sort of struggling. Todd, you know, was with me the week prior to at Players Championship. And I remember being on the range and telling Josh and Hortz, I said, listen, if I'm hitting it bad tomorrow, like I'm not playing. Like, I'm just going to withdraw. I'm going to go home. I'm just going to go work on the game and get it better. It just doesn't feel right. And we come out the next day in the Pro-Am, and I hit it okay. And they're like, what do you think? I said, I'm hitting it okay. I'm good enough, but I'm putting great. Like, the putting's awesome. Just get me on the green. I'm going to make everything. I go out and I play a really good first round. I play really good, play solid Friday. Saturday I played great. I remember playing with Gary Woodland on Saturday, and I think it was Ben on. I think I shot like 66 or 65, around 66 maybe, and get myself in the last group. And, you know, lo and behold, I'm playing against Jason Day, and I can't remember who else was in the group, but you know, we go into a playoff, and I beat Jason Day on the second playoff hole, I think. No, maybe the first playoff hole. But yeah, it was just one of those things where if you asked me at the beginning of the week, like, hey, you think got a chance to win? I said, man, I'm just trying to make the cut. And I go off and win. And game is so fickle, because once you find that one little feel, that one little piece, you can just run off. You can just carry that. And that's what I did. I found a little feel in the golf swing that allowed me to feel comfortable that I had control, and I saw the flight of the golf ball the way I wanted, and I went off and won. And there's been other times like that, you know, throughout my career, where I've either played well, that's led to wins, or I haven't played that great, and, you know, I find one little thing, and it just gives me all the confidence in the world I need, whether it's in the swing or the putting or whatever it may be. It's funny, because you guys know this, you know, you're never as far off as you seem. It's always one little feel away from you know, finding it and feeling like you're a world beater again.
I want to get you to build on telling us a little bit about the mental performance piece. And one part that when we watch you play, Billy, like it seems like you play with a lot of fire. I don't know if it's fair, like to say maybe you run hot, or there's a lot of energy and enthusiasm. And I know you work with Brett McCabe. I know that sometimes in golf it feels like we're pushing people to be really calm, really stoic, and that may not like fit you. How have you learned how to channel that rather than suppress it? Because I think that there's a lot of players that might be listening that it doesn't fit them to be that stoicism, and they maybe are kind of wired a little bit more like you.
Yeah, I've always been a believer that you got to be who you are. I think Todd has done a great job. There's been instances early in my career where I didn't handle situations the way I should have. I wasn't as professional as I needed to be. He never tried to, sort of tame that fire and sort of the emotion I play with, but he just showed me, as did Buddy. There's certain instances where you just need to realize this was out of line and you need to do a better job. I started working with Brett McCabe actually 2 months before I won Byron Nelson in 2017, and Brett was great. That was, I was in one of those modes where I just felt like I wasn't good enough, and I didn't work. I felt like whatever I did, I just wasn't good enough. And he sort of changed that mindset around, like, hey, you work hard, you got to believe in what you do, and you got to find some way to make things work. Out on the golf course, he understood I was perfectionism at heart, and I still early in my career in 2017 that I felt like everything needed to be perfect. And him as a collegiate baseball player at LSU and working with other athletes, like it's one thing, when I worked with other sports psychologists, they sort of always brought it back to golf. But Brett was great because he didn't use really big psychological terms that I had no clue what they were. And he also related to other athletes that he worked with and the way they felt and the way they did things. And so that sort of, developed my mental side of it even better, understanding like, hey, as a pitcher, like, this guy may be perfect, but he's finding some way to locate things. He's going to an off-speed pitch, when he talked about whenever he was trying to throw or strike, it was awful. And whenever he just didn't care, it was great. It was effortless. And so, one of my faults is I care too much. I want everything to be perfect. I need to play with a little bit more of a carefree nature when I'm just playing with my friends or in practice rounds, because he would see me playing practice rounds like, man, you hit it great. You go to a tournament, what happens? What changes? And come to find out, like a lot of golfers, you're controlling too much. You got to let go of the control a little bit. But the fire side of it's always been there. I don't ever try, when I see a kid now or anyone out there, like I don't, even as a tour player, like when I see Mita say, oh man, he's fiery, he's this or that. And I protect those guys. I remember Jordan Spieth when Jordan came out. There was some stuff early about the way Jordan did things and everything. And I remember in the media talking, like, guys, this is great. Like, he's showing emotion. Like, he cares. You're seeing how much he cares. Not everyone's going to be a Scotty Scheffler, like, or be, gosh, he was another pro early, at that time, early in my career. That was like a Henrik Stenson. Well, Henrik, you could see a little bit of emotion from time to time, but, more of a stoic aspect of the way they played. And I think there's that fine line, because someone who's stoic doesn't have to worry about this, but someone who is along my lines, there's that fine line of you controlling the fire and the fire controlling you. And you've got to find that happy medium, similar to, like I said, being overconfident and being too cocky and sort of leads to, worse golf than what it should. And so I've had to learn over my career, hey, when do I need to kick myself in the butt? Right. To get myself to focus or believe more in what I'm doing, and when do I need to pat myself on the back? And there's still instances today, 16 years on the PGA Tour, where you're going to see from time to time I may show a little bit of emotion, but it's for me to refocus, to rechannel, and also sometimes just get the frustration out. That's just the way I'm built. I can't, the frustration is going to build. At some point in time, it's got to pop. The top's got to pop off for you to sort of calm yourself back down and refocus what you need to do. And like John Rahm, I have no issue with John Rahm. I have no issue with anyone showing fire or emotion or anger or aggression on the golf course. I think as long as you do it where it's not affecting your playing competitors, then you're fine. And I remember Boo Weekly having a conversation with me. Yeah, that's probably right after 2014, maybe in 2013 actually. We played Greenbrier together the first 2 rounds of Scott Stallings. I played really good. I mean, I probably was 7-8 on the par for 2 days, but there was moments out there where I let the frustration and golf shots weren't turning out. I felt like that I was getting some bad breaks and sort of being too boisterous a little bit. And I remember Boo, all the caddies were in there, and we signed our scorecards, and Boo goes, asked all the caddies to leave the scoring trailer. And he goes, "Hey, Billy, I like you. You're a great guy. I just want to say that, I think, I can't remember how he said it, but he's like, pretty much the gist of it was, the fire that you have is great. You need to make sure that's not overstepping and affecting your playing competitors." And he said, "Listen, it wasn't affecting Scott and I, but I know where this leads to, and it can get worse. And I want to make you aware of it." And I said, "Boo, I thank you so much for that. I was like so appreciative of it, because I'm like, last thing I want to do is do anything that affect my playing partners and affect their game." And so that was such a great learning curve for me as well, to learn, how to do it in the right way where it's not affecting anyone else, but it gets what I need to get out of it.
Yeah, I'm totally with you. I think it's far more of a asset and has so much more usefulness to be a relief valve to the frustration that you're going to invariably face when your expectations are matched to the needs of the situation. That's to deliver world-class results at a fairly high clip, right? To compete with the best players in the world. And when your expectations aren't to the level, then generally they don't drive the type of effort in practice to lift the standards. So a player, rather than getting better, just really kind of gets by in practice, and that goes out to junior golfers as much as collegiate golfers, and sometimes, quite frankly, I see it at the professional game as well. You've been so amazing with your time. We've gone past the amount of time that,
Oh, we're good. We're good.
I suggested we would be on the phone. We're really
totally
thankful for that. I've got one final one for you that we can close with, but before we get there, I just want to go on record and say I appreciate the transparency, you being open to share your emotions and feelings with the collective golf world that think of professional players as robots and almost inhuman to that end. And I think the more of you that we see in players behaving in that authentic way, then it becomes humanized and much more relatable to just the everyday struggles that life throws at us, and sometimes the sports that we play throw at us. So the final question there is, you mentioned coming out of the major championships in 2014, you were so close to the Open Championship that you learned a few things about yourself and about what it takes to compete in major championships that's going to serve you well at some point in the future, that you'll ultimately get back into contention once again. Can you share with us what those 1 or 2 things might be?
Yeah, I think I've never lacked. It's funny because I've never lacked the confidence and ability that I believe I can win a major championship or win multiple major championships. But on the flip side, I have this tug of war with my perfectionist side that I believe that when you're in these bigger events that you need to be perfect. They challenge you at an even higher level, and you need to hit every shot, perfect. And it's not that way. And it's funny because, and I've learned in PGA Tour events, you don't have to be that way. And I've played well, but for some reason, when I got to majors, I felt like it needed to be perfect. And I believe around when Mark Fulcher, who caddied for Justin Rose, came on my bag starting in 2020, he gave me that confidence that, we can do this together. Obviously, his success with Justin Rose was huge. He brought some aspects of how to practice, certain things a little bit differently. But I think it was one of those things that he just said, "Hey, listen, you're good enough," which I knew. I just sometimes, as you guys know, sometimes you hear it from the same people over and over, and you just need a new voice, and to tell you it. And it's not that they weren't telling you the right thing. It's just you could hear it, but you just couldn't. It just wouldn't soak in. And so I believe 2020 Wingfoot was a big step for me. That was our first major that we had together. He was actually filling in. He was filling in for me, I think, at that time. And what was it? 2020 was COVID. And I played really well. I was top 5 after, 45 holes, and I just didn't finish it off in the sense of the play. Like, mine was good, just the game itself was, technical wise, got lost a little bit. But that really made a big step in the sense of, hey, I know I'm good enough now. I've always believed it, but I realized how to manage my game a little bit better. The mental side's always been the issue for me, and Brett's been great about it. And it's just a reaffirming the message, like, it doesn't have to be perfect. It doesn't have to be perfect. It doesn't have to be perfect. And I've learned that that's why I think last year was my best years of majors. Finished 7th at PGA, finished 2nd at the Open Championship. I played really well actually for 36 holes at Pinehurst, and then just didn't play good on the weekend. Like, mentally, it was nothing wrong. It was just the game itself just wasn't good on the weekend. But it's always been a mental struggle for me of just the perfectionist side outweighs sort of, strong arms, the common sense, what you can see, what you can believe. Because I've always, you see these other guys win, and it's not perfect. And you see, and we can talk about Jordan Spieth, we can talk about everybody, in the sense that they've won these events, and they've hit shots that haven't been good, but they've been able to manage the game. That's always just, even though you see it, you got to believe it, and you got to do it yourself for it to finally come to fruition. But majors have always been a battle for me. It's always one of those things. I think, as you said, when you have this desire, and that's one of your biggest goals, and you want it so bad, you sort of can lose focus of what you need to do, and you let other things come into play that shouldn't be the focus. And so the more I can focus about just preparation and believing in my prep, and understanding that my prep's been good enough to play, and now it's going out there and just thinking about managing the game, where I need to hit this shot, not worry about the score, not worry about your position, not worry about anything else out there, except what do I need to do with this shot to be successful? And that's, break it down to nuts and bolts. Like, that's the simplest things right there for me, is what I need to do with this shot, where I need to put it to be successful. And then, okay, well, did you execute? Yes or no? And then you go to the next shot and say, what do I need to do with this shot now to be successful?
Right. Beautiful.
Billy, we've got all kinds of gratitude for you. We can't wait to watch you play in those majors soon. And for the people that are listening instead of watching, they don't know that you're missing out on like an Avengers party back there. And so
there's a lot of stuff that goes in the household. We got 3 kids, well, one of them that's here, but you got an 8 and a 6-year-old that are just, balls of energy, which is shocking. They would have a lot of energy. Where'd they get that from? I know. Exactly. It's fun. It makes life and golf enjoyable, and they love their dad as much as they can. They love to see him play well, but even when he doesn't play well, they still love him, which is what everyone expects. Yeah,
exactly. So we're not going to keep you from it any longer. Thanks very much for joining us, and we look forward to watching and cheering on soon.
Cheers, buddy.
Awesome. Thanks, guys.
Bye-bye.
See ya.
Yeah. Okay. So we're here for our Billy Horschel debrief right now. And I think that there's a lot of fun stuff that came out of this that I want to just double click on. Hopefully some parents and some players and coaches can maybe think a little bit more deeply about a few of the things that we found the most interesting. And the first thing that I want to point out is, and I feel like a little bit of a broken record, Cam, because we always talk about this, is that there are way more ways to get to the top than what people think. There's not just one way to do it. And for the 100th time, we have an example with Billy Horschel here. And I think that so many parents and kids, they look at, okay, I need my AJGA rankings. I need my big junior wins. I need to travel around the country. And then you've got Billy tell us the story where he didn't have the resources to do all that. And he was pretty good at winning locally. And yet he comes to be a PGA star and a FedEx Cup winner, a little bit different avenue than most people have. And so here's the question that we'll start with, that I think that if you could answer this, this would be a really cool takeaway for us, is if AJGA stars and trophies and rankings and big junior wins are not the indicators that I should be paying attention to, what are some of the markers or benchmarks that are more reliable to tell me, okay, this I'm on the right track or I'm doing the right thing?
Yeah, I don't think it's um, I would make the distinction between those things aren't good markers because they are. Big wins are markers, but they're nice but not necessary, right? We oftentimes talk about early ripe and early rotten. It's just as plausible to see someone excel at a very young age and then at some point, through a variety of different means or mechanisms, kind of fall off at a later point, whether that later point is late in high school or at some point in college golf or then beyond when they're trying to compete professionally. And there are just as many stories that are similar to Billy's, or even one step more removed from Billy's in terms of what I mean by that is Billy had some success at a local scene. So he's clearly demonstrating some level of skill above and beyond the peer group that he was around locally. But he didn't have the financial means to travel. And if he had that financial means, we might have seen a different story in terms of his success on a national level, or he may not have. Regardless, there are just as many cases of players that don't excel locally, but yet through skill development, biological development, etc., ultimately arrive at a place at a later point in time where they're considered some of the best players in the world, whether that be collegiately or beyond that into professionally. And it reminds me of the life plans image that we've used in our presentation of Journey to High Performance on many occasions. And we'll insert it here into maybe at the bottom of the screen in
Right.
post-production that tells that story of it's not a linear pathway from zero to the top. There are many detours, there are many roadblocks, there are many pitfalls to navigate. And that's where it's so important to recognize the existence of those things and have coaches and parents and support crew around you that would be able to help you work through those things, right? You don't have to peak at 12, and band tournaments don't define your ultimate trajectory. I think it's to summarize it, I think a person needs to be more concerned with their current trajectory than their current position or a level of performance. And so, as far as actionable, to kind of put a bow on my comments there, I think that after practice or after tournaments, whether they be good or bad, the recognition that keeps you kind of like motivated and moving forward is answer a couple of questions. What was learned? What improvements did you make? And then what improvements do you need to make in subsequent practices or tournaments? And then you're kind of level setting each event or each practice back to a growth mindset.
Exactly. And that's what I wanted. That's what I wanted our listeners to get out of that, is that we do have to take this more long-term view. It's not just about short-term results. And then it's what you just mentioned there. It's that question of, all right, am I getting better? Like, am I on the right trajectory? Am I trending the way that I need to over a long period of time? And so that's, again, every conversation that we have seems to come back to this commonality. So I'm glad that we can make that point again, because I think it's so important. I'm going to bring us to the next kind of topic that I thought was really cool. And this is another commonality. It's something that we hear a lot, is the importance of the people that are around Billy. And Billy mentioned a lot of people. And so I just want to shine light on that. He had people around him that were building his identity, who he was. I think namely dad was a really important piece of that. I'm going to construction sites with dad. My dad's sacrificing a lot to be my coach. My dad's a hard worker. And then, that's building like who he is, the personality traits that Billy has that are so important. And then I would say, so you've got an identity builder there, then you've got player builders. He gets to Florida and he has a coach that teaches him how to play in a different way. That's really, he even said, Billy, I don't know if I'd be here if it wasn't for my coach in college, which is really powerful. It's inspirational to us as coaches that we could have that kind of impact on a player, and that they would perceive it that way. And then in a short conversation, he mentioned caddy He mentions Todd Anderson. He mentions Brett McCabe, sports psychologist. He mentions stats. So I think what I would like to highlight is remaining open to these influences that we have on our lives and us as competitors, that you can get to a point that says, hey, I know what I know. I may not need all this help, where you have this great player who's open to all these influences. And I think that can go both ways. We have to recognize the power of these influences, right? Good or bad, because the people that are around are going to have some kind of influence on us. And I think that these people that we talk to are just so like intentional about who they're spending a time around and how they're kind of building this team around them. They're really thoughtful, careful, intentional. And I just think that it's something that if you think that you're going to reach these high peaks alone, that we have a lot of evidence that shows that that's not really how the best players have gotten there. So I just really wanted everyone to take note of that. Not coming from a coach who's obviously a little bit biased on the importance of great coaching, but I think that this is pretty good evidence.
Yeah, I think so. And what you learn from those around you is so critically important. And the one point that I would make on that is when Billy started talking about his upbringing and being from that blue collar family and being his parents serving as the evidence of hard work, right? And it doesn't need to be compartmentalized into like, this is your socioeconomic upbringing, and so therefore this is the things that get modeled based on that. Because you've got another example that plays on the PGA Tour, Mav McNeely, who by all accounts had a fairly privileged upbringing given his dad's business success in a very white collar world, but yet the same modeling of hard work and intelligent practice was modeled by his parents as well. So I think the thing that I would underscore is that, and not to be glib and use these catchphrases, is talent beats hard work unless talent fails to work hard. And so the players that ultimately kind of pass through this difficult moments or delayed development are those that are willing to put in the sweat equity, and that sweat equity is underscored by the ecosystem of people that they ultimately surround themselves with through whatever period of time that person becomes kind of like that capable and caring, confident, whether that's a coach in college or a coach like you and I are, or a sports psychologist like Brett McCabe.
Well, and so that segues really good into the next point that I wanted to make. And it was probably the favorite thing that came out of the conversation with Billy was he's just got this grit about him. He's got a little bit of an edge to him. And I think that it's apparent through the conversation that comes from the friction that he had. You know what I mean? I don't know if I want to call it hardship, but it's not like there were obstacles, there were challenges that he was exposed to at a young age. And I think that as parents, as coaches, we oftentimes tend to want to remove as much friction as possible and make sure that we give every possibility that you're going to achieve these big goals that you have. And I want to do my best to support you. And so it's easy to
pop the seas, right?
Exactly. Part the seas. Exactly. It's easy to think that the best way to do that is to minimize the friction that you're going to encounter. But those hardships that Billy describes are different ways or challenges that he has is the source of his edge. And Billy has edge, and Billy has turned that edge into fuel. And so I think that it's hard to develop the kind of competitive toughness and the psychological resilience if we never encounter any kind of challenge. So I think that the takeaway there is maybe a better word for it than I'm using the word hardship, which sounds dramatic, but maybe just manageable adversity. Like making sure that there's something manageable, that there's some adversity that a kid is going to have to go through or a player is going to have to go through at some time so that they can develop some of that edge and some of that grit that I think has served a guy like Billy so well throughout his career and has become a part of his kind of competitive personality. So I really think that role of friction is important to Billy's story, and I think that it's important that we highlight.
Yeah, it's one thing to go looking for it. And it's another thing to expect that it's going to be just part of a normal journey, right? So understand it's going to be part of a normal journey. Don't avoid it. Don't shy away from it. But also just as much in what you do day to day or week to week, go and find that desirable difficulty that's documented so well in sports psychology circles, right? By challenging yourself, by playing in a group with maybe players that are far superior than you, by playing in a tournament that is a stretch, and that's going to land you face to face with this learning opportunity that you may come out of the back end of it bruised, a little harmed or scarred. But those are those growth opportunities that you're underscoring there.
Yeah, and what a cool personality or perspective shift too, is to say like I have appreciation for these moments. I know that these moments are important. Instead of shying away from those, or instead of saying "woe is me," I hate that this challenge has happened to me. To
Hmm.
shift a perspective to say, "Hey, this may be an important part of my journey. I've got to have some appreciation for this, and how I work my way through it is a really cool way to shift how you it's just a more empowering way to see those
Right.
situations when they happen to us instead of being a victim to that. There's a little brief moment that I wanted to allow you to discuss the kind of fake it till you make it. Billy talked a little bit about how there was this maybe perception that he was really confident, but not until he really started to believe in himself is when he started to see some results.
Yeah.
So it kind of flies in the face of what we hear normally. Can you speak a little bit to that?
Yeah, I think that you're right that he came off cocky early. At least he described that, and that cockiness was a bravado that he wanted to project to the outside world. But it was rather performative, wasn't it? He admitted that himself, and his wins, so to speak, whether those were actual trophies or successes at larger events in college, came when that belief came from somewhere far deeper. It came from somewhere far more internal, and that was core to his, let's say, ascent through college. And it's one thing to be patient and wait for those things to show up in terms of tournament victories, but it's another thing to, let's say, document your highlights in practice and let those be the building blocks of a foundation of confidence that doesn't need to be cosmetic, that actually you're building this core identity. And so I think that what we do, rather unique to most coaches or academies, is we'll ask our players to quote unquote brag on themselves. And we won't hesitate to, let's say, pump their tires up just as much as they might be pumping their own tires, right? But it's all built on a foundation of fact, not fiction. So build your own highlight reel if you're a player out there, and that could be singular shots. It could be comebacks in a difficult round that you're proud of, or it could be legitimately tournament victories. The easy ones that stand out will be those tournament wins. But it's those small moments inside of difficulty that do help a person build a core of confidence. And just as much for players, it doesn't need to be, or sorry, parents, it doesn't need to be built on any foundation of fiction. You should be building your juniors, your players, your sons or daughters' identity on real and valid experiences that they can be proud of. And I think those move a player from the fake it till you make it mindset, where everything confidence is cosmetic, to having a core foundation of self-belief that helps them grow faster.
Yeah, we're all really quick to, well, those bad shots and those bad memories of shots stick with us for a long time. And then we get those
Mhm.
good shots and we just kind of gloss over those. And we don't allow those to build up our self-image and be that resource or that source of confidence. That's actual evidence. We kind of feel like, well, that's just what I should have done. Whereas really great players are intentional about making sure that those powerful moments are kind of imprinted on their memory in a way that's going to be a resource later on that they can anchor to and actually build some real confidence.
Right.
Um, the other great story that I think Billy told was about the Byron Nelson and
Mhm.
almost withdrawing from the tournament, and then that he goes on to win. And it's like that old cliche of like, you're never as far off as you think you are. And I think that it's a really powerful message for competitors to hear that, form can move fast. There can be these fluctuations in performance, and small changes in setup and timing and sequence. A small cue can make a really, really large change on performance in our gains. And so I think just staying in the arena is the message, is staying at it. And I think that for players that may be struggling to hear a story like Billy, it's nice to hear that. It's nice to hear that, man, you know what? Maybe I'm not so far off. Maybe there's not some kind of overhaul that has to happen in order for things to change. So
Yeah.
I just really want to highlight that because I think it's a good thing for people to hear.
And the one thing I would add to that didn't come out in the conversation is you see just as many seemingly instantaneous breakthroughs that aren't built on, let's say, finding a feel. It wasn't physical. It wasn't even, as you mentioned, temporal or timing based.
Yeah.
just as many breakthroughs come from trying less hard, putting less onus or pressure on yourself to validate your own self-belief.
Yeah. Love that.
In Texas, we have this expression. I think it's an expression that's throughout the South, where your effort meter is defined as the give a shitter.
Yeah.
And we want the give a shitter to be moderately on, but not overly high. So don't turn that give a shit all the way off. Have it on to where you care, but you play carefree, not careless, not overburdened by trying to prove to yourself or prove to anyone else that you are capable.
Yeah. And that's like the story that he told about Boo Weekly too. You know, that's the other thing that we hear about Billy is he plays with this fire. Well,
Yeah.
like a sports psychologist would call that arousal. And there's like this peak, there's this really productive amount of arousal that you can get to where it's actually effective, where it might help performance. And, you know, we talk about how do we use anger? How does he use that fire? And Boo Weekly telling him, hey, you can have all that, but as soon as this affects your playing partners, that's too much. I think that's a cool constraint to have on things. It's like if you can think about that, like I'm playing with a little bit of fire, but as long as this is something that's internal, that's driving me, that this wasn't this isn't so much that it would distract another competitor or playing partner with me, then maybe that's useful. And so just finding that kind of that inverted U of arousal to where it gets to its peak, where it's actually helpful to performance before it gets so much that performance, you know, regresses, then I think is a cool thing to think about. And that's kind of similar to what you're talking about there. Is that the right amount of the give a shitter, right?
Right on.
Yeah. Okay, cool, man.
Great.
That's the takeaways from Billy. Another incredible conversation with an incredible player. That hopefully there's a few things that we can all take away as coaches, players, and parents to help serve our own journey. So yeah, enjoyed it. Cam, thanks for the insights, and stay tuned till next time.